our lives are the sum total of all the choices we made up to this point. And these difficult times, they can define you. These difficult times can diminish you. These difficult times can distract you. Or these difficult times, they can develop you, right? We ultimately decide.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. Today we have Jim Kwik on the show. He is an expert in brain performance, and I've personally been able to learn from him over the years. He's a friend of mine. He has a new book coming out called Limitless Daily, and these are daily excerpts, 1 page a day, where you can start to train and teach your brain to work for you, work harder for you, and be more efficient, and really get to where you want to go. So in this conversation, Jim and I talk through identity, the identity gap, he calls it, the difference between who you think you are and who you want to be. And he's just brilliant when it comes to breaking things down into ways and systems where you will remember them and then hopefully apply. So without further ado, here's Jim Kwik. So Jim, welcome back to the Why Not Now show, and welcome to Austin.
Oh, it's been a minute since we've done this.
10 years. You were in that inaugural kind of season. So I think you were right after Mark Cuban, and I had no clue what I was doing with this show when it started.
Congratulations, 10 years. Wow.
Well, thank you for being here. And in the spirit of Why Not Now, can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you had to ask yourself, why not now? And we can dissect that delta from idea to action.
Oh, I like that. Well, certainly I've had my moments, like everybody. One that comes first to mind was, so this is my 34th year of doing what I do, helping people learn faster and improve their human intelligence, and people always, every opportunity to scale though, when I got started, I would always say no. I remember I had a learning center in Westchester, New York, and I met with Kaplan, talking to him about partnering or franchising. And I said no, and media, no, train other brain coaches, no, certify them. The Tony Robbins infomercial, Gunty Riker, they reached out and wanted to do something on reading, memory enhancement as an infomercial. I said no, because I always struggle with this thing, Amy, where I want to help people, but I don't want to be front and center. I don't need to be known for it. I feel more of a moral obligation. Book deals, always said no. One that stands out, and we could use the Delta as a proxy, was in 2018. I don't talk about this. I was in a car accident, pretty bad one. I could have died, or maybe technically people would think that I should have died. Well, I haven't thought about this for a while.
Wow.
And then after that, I end up, why not now? I signed a book deal that was offered to me, that's been in my inbox on my desk for 10 years. Because it made me think. I don't know, for anyone who's listening or watching who's had a near-death experience, it kind of changed. Sometimes in life, it takes life conditions on the outside to make you reflect or look at your values, look at your priorities. Mm-hmm. And then that week I signed that book deal that's been taking up a lot of mind share and heart share, a lot of fear around it. Because people at that time even thought I had 12 books, because I was so out there and prolific with our, podcasts and social media and speaking and such. But it made me think, what I would have left behind. Mm-hmm. And I was like, there's two things. I want a book and a baby.
A book and a baby.
Which is funny, in terms of what I would leave, in terms of behind. That was so.
Wow.
Those are. Since then, those are 2 check marks.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting how that was a wake up call for you to maybe own your voice more in the way that felt natural for you, clearly. But that knock on the door was decades in the making, right?
Because it wasn't, what I was struggling with wasn't imposter syndrome or some other things that, I mean, we all deal with these things, but it was more, and it wasn't procrastination. I knew I could write a book. I wrote Limitless in a couple of months because I just had like 30 years of content organized in my mind. But I think sometimes if we hesitate or we stall, sometimes some storms come in. Maybe this accident was a storm. There's some things we can only learn in a storm, and it just brought it into harsh reality that this is, especially teaching speed reading and learning and being an advocate for reading, not having a book felt incongruent, It's not, so I didn't feel like, it wasn't that I didn't feel worthy to put that out. It's just, there was another block where I just didn't want to be even more known, which is a tough thing to reconcile, right? You want to help people, but if I could be behind the scenes and an AI, avatar could be doing this, it would be a little bit more comfortable. But I feel more obligation to do what I do. Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate that even in this moment we are in now with just accelerated intelligence and everything is. I keep thinking, gosh, our minds weren't necessarily programmed to cognitive-wise. It feels like chaos, I think, for a lot of people because things are moving so quickly, and you've spent decades helping individuals with memory and learning, myself included memory. I remember living on the boat and learning to speed read, like from all of your lessons and tactics, but like focus and mindset. And you've worked with brilliant minds. And sometimes people learn, but that they don't do.
Yeah.
So sometimes, they have the resources, people learn the information, they don't take action on it. So what's the difference between those two types of people that you've probably experienced left and right along your career?
No doubt. I think there's three parts to it. First of all, it's unpacking the lie. I talk about this in Limitless. The lie is an acronym that stands for limited idea entertained. It's I feel like a lot of the work that I do is around helping people transcend, end the transcend, ending the trance.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, this mass hypnosis, whether it's through marketing or media or family, that somehow we're not enough, that we need to be fixed, that we're broken, or even self-hypnosis. Maybe it's something we're telling ourselves, that I'm not creative. I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm not a leader or whatever, and your brain is like this incredible supercomputer. And I feel like our self-talk is a program that will run. So if we tell ourselves things like we're not creative, I'm a procrastinator, I'm not a leader, I have a horrible memory, I'm too old, whatever it happens to be, then that's the program it will run. If you say you have a great memory, you're not good at remembering names, you probably won't remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your supercomputer not to. These thoughts for me aren't even descriptions, they are instructions, in terms of how we're going to run. They're the prompts, that we're running all the time. So whether you're doing the prompts for artificial intelligence or your own human intelligence, I feel like those words matter. But one of the lies is that knowledge by itself is power. We hear it. We've heard it from the beginning of, since from the beginning that we were here. And I just feel like it's not, right? Knowledge has the potential to be a lot of power, but it's only when we act on it. And I think that makes a difference. So in the Limitless model, I talk about being stuck in a box. So Limitless is not about being perfect. It's about expanding, advancing beyond what you're currently demonstrating or what you believe is possible. And so if anybody listening, we can make this kind of like a little mental exercise. Anyone who's watching and listening, think about an area of your life where you're not progressing. You're stuck in a box. You're limited. Maybe it's your happiness, your mental health, your reading speed, your memory, your income, your creativity, your impact, whatever it is. Now, by definition, that box is three-dimensional. So the three forces that contain that box, or I was listening to an episode with you, like a cage, right? You're stuck in that cage. So those three forces are the same forces that will liberate you out of that box. And I illustrated with the Venn diagram, three intersecting circles, kind of like the ears of Mickey Mouse and the face, right? The face is the three M's, because I tend to alliterate to make it elegant and memorable. The face would be the last one with the methods. And a lot of people know what to do. They know how their go-to AI platform works, or they know how to lose that weight, or they know how to start the business, but they're not doing it, right? And so we have to address those two previous circles. The first one, in no particular order, is mindset. Henry Ford said, if you believe you can, I believe you can. Either way, you're right. But going back to that, a belief is nothing but a thought that you repeat hundreds and thousands of times, right? There's that neuroplasticity that's wired. And, and I think three things that to think about are what I believe is possible. And this is interesting because you could use AI to have a conversation with you about these things, right? To interview, right?
But
so
I
you
do
could
that all the time.
Yeah, it's a wonderful. For me, AI is more not so much artificial intelligence, more augmented intelligence. It's like that partner, right? So, what I believe is possible, what I believe I'm capable of, what I believe I deserve. So let's say the method. People know how to make more money. They know how to write that book. They know how to lead that team. They know how to get that investment, whatever it happens to be, but they're not doing it. There's a gap between their, I think it has to go from your head to your heart to your hands. You can visualize things with your head, but you're not acting with your hands. Something's missing. So I would say...
Wait. Can we say that again?
Yeah.
That just landed for me. Let's not go too fast there. So you said head to heart to hands. If you're thinking about something but you're not acting, there's something missing.
Yeah, which is the second H, which is heart, which is the symbol of emotion, and going to the power of purpose. And
how many people probably listening right now are thinking, yeah, I've thought about this. I get it conceptually. I know how to act, but why am I not doing it?
Yeah.
Your heart is probably not in it. I can say for a fact, like my second book has been sitting there for decades, like not a decade, but almost. And it's conceptual and I get it and it's all tech, but my heart isn't as in it anymore because I think I've grown from it. Even though it still works and it still makes sense, but I'm not physically there anymore with it.
Yeah.
And I know what it takes to promote a book. So now I've leaped over that and I'm here.
Right.
I can work on today, but that just clicked for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
and I can show you where this, because that would be the final circle. But just getting your mind right, starting with the first H, which is the head, which is the mindset. And so, for example, someone could have a great method for enhancing their income, right, to make more money. But if their mindset is, and the mindset I'm defining very functionally and practically as the set of assumptions and attitudes you have about something. Your attitudes and assumptions about money. So let's say they have underlining beliefs that money is the root of all evil. You have to hurt people to make money. All those billionaires, they have to hurt people to be able to do that. Or people aren't going to like you if you make a lot of money. They're not going to trust you, or money doesn't grow on trees, so it's scarce. Whatever it happens to be, then you're still stuck in that box. So if you're not acting, to go to your original question, like people know what to do, but they're not doing what they know, because common sense is not common practice. Part of it is that under those underlying mindset, maybe they have a set of disempowering assumptions and attitudes about that thing, right? Or maybe they know, maybe the method is to something in a relationship or something around their health. Maybe they don't believe it's possible for them, or maybe they believe it's possible for somebody else, but not them, or maybe they don't believe they deserve it.
Is it ever that they don't actually want to do it? They think they want to do it. They want to do it, but they don't actually want to do it. They just think it's the smartest route, but they can't force themselves. And
I would put that under mindset, because other people's attitudes and assumptions towards that thing. I spent a lot of time in senior centers. I lost my grandparents at a very early age, and I didn't get to meet a couple of them. But I spent time in senior centers helping them polish off their memories, obviously, learning. So there's so much wisdom. I think the life we live are the lessons we teach. So I get to learn that everybody could be a teacher because they all have had experiences I haven't had. But I also hear a lot of regrets. And, when they're in this kind of a safe place, and somehow they'll say something to the effect of they didn't pursue a relationship that they were very drawn to because what other people would think about that relationship or that person. Some people, they set a career path because it was the expectation was from their parents that they became like a certain profession. So it could be coming from the outside and it's imprinted on us, and that could definitely affect our mindset in terms of people's mentors, or everybody's doing that on social media. So I must have to do that too, right?
Right, totally. And that, you talk a lot about identity with Limitless, and a question for you, it kind of comes back to that point, but also carrying us forward. So I'm a big believer that mood follows action. I know that to be true in myself in terms of I can't necessarily sit here and get myself to change and shift moods.
Yeah.
I need to usually move, literally. And then with action usually brings more clarity for me at least. And when it comes to kind of identity, let's just look at confidence. Are you a believer that a person has to, make the moves and take the actions to build that confidence, or do they need to feel confident in their identity to take action, right? Like, which one comes first? Sometimes we need to see evidence or have that competence, but I think so many times I'm still seeing that lack of belief in themselves.
For me, it works both ways. Just like even with mood and movement, some people need to be in a mood, and that mood, when they're excited, will create movement. Or some people create the movement, and then they get the dopamine reward from the movement, and then which is the molecule, of motivation, which reinforces more movement. Which is great, because some people wait till I think it's a mistake for people to wait to be motivated to do something when you could do something small, get the dopamine, and then you're more compelled to create movement and momentum. But so actually, this goes into the final M, that other ear, which is motivation.
Okay.
So someone could be stuck in that box, for what they feel like they're not making progress to, because number one, even if they have the method, is that their mindset says this is what you deserve, right? Or you're not capable outside that box. Or some people are not motivated to get out of that box, right? And for me, I break it down into 3 keys for limitless motivation. So motivation for me is not something you have. Going back to transcending, ending the trance, people put themselves in hypnosis by saying things like, I don't have creativity today. I don't have hope. I don't have motivation. I don't have focus. I don't have memory. These are not things you have. These are things you do. So a core principle, like a first principle in my teaching, would be taking nouns and turn them into verbs. So you don't have focus, you do focus. It's a verb. You don't have creativity. There's a process for creating. You don't even have a memory. There's 3 stages of encoding, storing, and retrieving, right? But the benefit of turning it into a verb is you could reclaim what you talk a lot about, your own agency, right? You're not at the effect. You're a thermostat, you're not a thermometer. Like a thermometer on the wall would react to the environment. And human beings, we react to the economy, to politics, to how people treat us, and so on. I feel like the highest achievers, would identify more with the thermostat, where they're not reacting, they're gauging. They have situation awareness. They know what's going on in the economy and politics, or their business industry, whatever. But then a thermostat has a different function. It sets a temperature, and the environment reacts to it.
I love that. They're on offense. They're proactive. They're
very, very much
human
so.
agency versus the thermometer that responds to.
I'm a big proponent for personal sovereignty. That that we have the ability to affect things, more than we realize. So for motivation, the formula for limitless motivation, if you want to get out of that box and you're not doing the thing, is just 3 things. P times E times S3. The letter P times letter E times S3. So we'll break it down. The P is purpose. Going back to head, heart, hands, right? It has to go. If you could visualize KPIs, you have things, you visualize that goal, but if you're not acting with your hands, you're not creating some kind of action. Check in with the second H, which is the heart, which is symbol of emotion. And this in business, right? We're not logical. Biologically, we buy emotionally, we justify logically.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense for people, if you think about people who have gone from head to hands quickly, it's not a sustainable, even if they are finding motivation to do it. For now, it doesn't, in those periods of drought where there will always be, times of stress and tension, it's not as durable because they don't have the heart. It's
right.
It's very interesting. It's very fleeting.
I completely agree. There's a difference between something being attainable and sustainable.
Exactly.
Right. So people could exercise a certain amount of willpower, but that's a finite resource in my experience. And so purpose for me is a very strong well. That's what gets me to be on stage, to be on 3 continents in 1 week, right? I'm very clear on my purpose and it energizes me, but I feel it. Not cognitively. I think people know they should do something mentally, but if they don't feel it, they're not going to do it because we're not logical. Well, we are biological. When we talk about dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, we are this neurochemical soup, around our emotions. And I feel, here's an example. Like a few years ago in my neighborhood, I saw someone who I recognized, but I didn't know who it was. And there was a certain amount of subtle pressure for me to be able to remember everybody, right? Because of the nature
you're the
of my
memory
work,
guy.
right? Amongst other things.
People ever trick you?
But I didn't know. But I didn't know who it was. But when he came and he opened up his mouth, I heard his voice. I knew exactly who it was. But he looked completely different. And so the backstory is this person used to be the most unhealthy person you can imagine. So everyone pictures like somebody that was that person. And that was his identity, and nobody. So I believe genius leaves clues, right? If somebody's doing something extraordinary, there's a method behind what looks like magic, and that core belief is important for me to have because that means it's trainable, right? There could be a transfer of knowledge and skills and so on. So I asked him these questions like, "What are you doing? Like, you look amazing. You look," because he looks so much younger, so much fitter. He had this glow, and he's like, "Yeah, well, I'm doing this. I'm like, wait a second. I've been telling you, and our mutual friends have been telling you to do that for years, right?" But he was like, "Yeah," and he's telling me about this story about he was on this big work trip, and when he finally came home, his daughter he found her crying like profusely when she woke up from her nap, and she had a nightmare that he had passed away, right? And in that because he was so unhealthy, right? And in that moment, he found that well, he found that purpose, and it became non-intellectual. He knew why he should lose weight, stop smoking, everything, but he still didn't do it. But once he felt it,
motivation,
that purpose. So I would say that if someone is stuck or stalled with doing that thing, do you have purpose that you feel and allow yourself to feel? But then someone could have limitless purpose and still not do the thing, because the only evidence someone's motivated is they're acting consistently, right? Check in with the E, which stands for energy. And this is interesting. I've had I have very bad sleep apnea where I stop breathing 250 times a night. Each time is 10 seconds. So I wake up kind of suffocating, and CPAPs don't really work, or dental devices that I've tried. So I realize sometimes I'm not motivated because I'm exhausted. And I feel that's not something that's often talked about, but sometimes we just don't want to do that thing because our sleep is not there, our nutrition's not there.
Like energy.
Life force, vitality, stress uses up a lot of energy. Trauma, takes up a lot of space, fear of looking bad, all this negative people in your life, all of these are energy drains, right? So, in Limitless, we put 10 keys for limitless mental energy, right? Because an exhausted mind won't do anything. And then finally, somebody can have limitless purpose and limitless energy and still not do that thing. And I think the third and only final reason why is because that thing is maybe just outside of either what they're used to doing, or maybe it's too big or abstract or unattainable. And so S3 stands for small, simple steps, right? Yes. And so maybe,
I love it.
So maybe somebody wants to exercise, very simple, right? As your body moves, your brain grooves, you create brain-derived neurotropic factors, which is like fertilizer for your brain, so critical. But if they're not doing it consistently, even if they have purpose and energy, maybe they need to break it down into a small, simple step. So maybe going to the gym is a big jump. Put on your running shoes, right? Let's say, if we're connected on social media and people have seen me with Elon or Oprah or whoever, one of the questions people ask is, how'd you connect? Would you bond over? And we bonded over books, right? You read to succeed. Leaders are readers. Warren Buffett, reads 500 pages a day because they have more knowledge. And when you know more, you could do more. When you know better, you could do better, right? You can make better decisions, right? And or somebody has decades of experience like yourself, and you put into a book, which you did, and somebody could read that book in a few days. They could download decades of wisdom and experience and insights and research in days. That's a huge advantage, right? But let's say people aren't reading 30 minutes a day, and then I would say a small, simple step: opening up the book, reading one line in the book, on our podcast. We had a biological dentist recently from Germany. It's just world class, trains all these other biological dentists around the country, around the world. And we're talking about oral health and brain health. And beyond just brushing, it's like oil pulling and tongue scraping and just the microbiome and inflammation, how it affects the brain. And talking about flossing, and I was asking, how do you get kids to floss? Maybe it's too big of a jump if that's something they haven't tried before, but floss one tooth. Right? Because little by little, a little becomes a lot. So simple prompt that you give your mind or AI, right, which is the same, because I love AI, but only because I'm used to talking to my own intelligence using these prompts and clarity and looking what could go wrong. And I do these mental experiments even that I do with AI now, saying be an expert. Like this is my path here. I want you to be the expert critic and tell me everything I'm not seeing, what could go wrong, everything. But I naturally do that with my own intelligence. So AI was easy. But the prompt I use for myself, and I've done it for 20 years, when I feel stuck or stalled, like this thing is too big, what is the tiniest action I could take right now that will give me progress towards this goal so tiny I can't fail? And I ask myself this multiple times a day consciously. Sometimes I'll put it into Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, and those answers are very revealing, right? So breaking things down. So the 3 reasons we don't do something: you don't feel the purpose, right? Or you have no energy to do that thing, or maybe that thing's just too big and you need to break it down, because I think inch by inch is a cinch. Yard by yard is way too hard. But little by little, a little becomes a lot. Right?
Absolutely.
And then also it gives you that final thing. We take that small, simple step, and you're rewarded with that dopamine, which is what you earned by. One of the challenge I think today, especially younger generation, but across all ages and stages, is we're getting cheap dopamine, right? Doom scrolling, you don't have to earn it. There's no effort that's required, and you're getting flooded with this dopamine, right? These hits, these little molecules of joy, or binge watching something, or going online, or eating some junk food. No effort is required, and some people are not motivated because they're just kind of burning out that whole dopamine network, and they wonder why they can't get themselves to do the things they need to do. But taking a small, simple step will give you that dopamine that you earned, and then that will reinforce the behavior and the action.
So just to recap real quick.
Yeah.
We've got methods, mindset,
And
motivation,
motivation.
and then P times E
Times S3, which is the
times
motivation.
S3. Simple,
So
small
those
steps.
3 things are the biggest levers. If someone wants to become, if someone feels limited in any area of their life, what I'd be thinking is it where's the bottleneck? Is it my mindset? Do I not believe it's possible? Do I not believe I'm capable of it? Do I not believe I deserve it? Maybe analyze the underlying assumptions or attitudes I have about that thing, doing that thing. What would it mean? What's that? How's that relate to my identity?
Makes sense.
Right? And motivation, maybe if that's the bottleneck, checking in on your purpose, checking on your mental energy, are you making it too big? Do you need to break it down? And then also, what can keep you in that box? You can have a limitless mindset, everything is possible, you deserve it, and limitless motivation, purpose, energy, and everything else, but still not. You can still be stuck because you're using old, outdated methods or misinformed methods.
Okay.
Or maybe methods that aren't currently working today.
Well, I was just going to ask you about that. So let's talk about today. We both are on the road a lot. We're getting to see so many different types of audiences. And something we were talking about right before we started this morning was, as I've traveled around, I've never kind of seen the level of exhaustion in people's eyes that I see now. And it's this days of burnout and boredom and lots of fear. But to me, it seems like it's a cognitive load, a fragmented just mind of things are going so fast.
Yeah.
And we aren't necessarily designed for that. So if you look at the moment in time we're in now, I gave this talk last week and the light bulbs were coming on, but there was still this woman toward the end and these are executives in a field where they've been forced to adopt what they have to adopt for AI. But she said, I'm still not quite bought in, because she was afraid for the sake of the wrong people training the models, right? Is there a way we can all resist? And it was hard to even hear that, because it was so counterintuitive to and productive to her intelligence and where things are going. There's no stopping this, right? AI is here and it's not going anywhere. So how do we look at our mind? How do we look at how fast things are moving and start to kind of organize that or find a new way with coping? Yeah. And then also, I think the resistance still at this stage fascinates me, that, that's a potential strategy.
Yeah, let's unpack that.
I know there's kind of two parts there, but so it's like, wow, what's going on in there?
So burnout and boredom, people are okay. So it's been my experience sometimes, and we could talk about burnout. Sometimes people are burned out not because they're doing too much. Sometimes people feel burnt out because they're doing too little of the things that are lighting them up, right? Mm-hmm. And so part of it is a filtering mechanism, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, part of it could be cognitive overload, which can lead to that, higher levels of stress, which shrinks the human brain. Certainly, the distraction, the noise is so. It's epidemic, proportions right now, and so being able to control your mind, I think now more than ever is so very important. I think AI scales and AI can amplify, but only scales and amplifies what we bring to it. Right, our human intelligence. So I feel like the nature of my work over the past few decades, whether it's the online academy, teaching focus, flow, brain optimization, speed reading, memory, whatever happens to be, leads to human intelligence. So I'm a big advocate for human intelligence in the world of AI. I'm very pro technology. This allows this to happen, right? Yeah. I just want to remind people, technology is a tool that for us to use, but if the technology is using us, then we become the tool. So I still like to lean into our own agency, our own sovereignty, using a tool to be able to magnify or amplify what we're doing. Because somebody could AI is no longer a competitive advantage, right? Because we all have access to it, right? Information itself is not an advantage because we all have infinite access to this information, right? It's going to be the human mind that's going to determine what information is important, right? AI could do computations and pattern recognitions, be able to consolidate data and give you all these data points. But ultimately, human beings are going to decide what's important, what this means, what am I going to do now with this information, right? Mm-hmm. And that's human intelligence. It's kind of like I do a lot with a lot of athletes, or I'm working with a F1 driver, and this is a multi-million-dollar piece of technology, right? That car, but it's the driver that's going to get the performance out of it, different than I would, right?
Because that car is that car is that car. Anybody could have that same car,
right? Exactly.
Right? It's what we put into it,
and I think that's like AI. It's just what you bring. Somebody could use AI to write a social media post, great, interesting post, or they could use AI to create the next billion-dollar venture. It's the human intelligence that you're bringing to it. And here's the thing: if somebody, I think AI almost, so many people are concerned AI will replace, and that's a different conversation. Replace them. It certainly will reveal them, meaning that AI as an amplifier, if you bring chaos and confusion into it, it's going to amplify chaos and confusion. Right. And if you bring a level of clarity and discernment to it, you'll get a different output also as well. My challenge is that is not that, AI is certainly, it's exponential. And while it's exponential, I think human intelligence or the human mind is undermanaged, it's underprotected, talking about burnout and overload, it's undertrained. And so my challenge is in a world of AI that human intelligence becomes artificial, meaning we're so dependent on it. I talk about in Limitless, even 6 years ago, I called it digital deduction, just like digital dementia, where you're relying on technology to remember your to-dos, your calendar, all the phone numbers, right? We don't have to remember phone numbers anymore. And so, and it should be concerning also, because not that I want to memorize 5,000 phone numbers, but it should be very concerning. We've lost the ability to remember one, or a PIN number, or seed phrase.
Are we not using that?
Right.
Doesn't that need to be used?
Literally, my shirt, if you're watching this video, says, use it. And it's like, use it or lose it. So your brain is it's an organ, but it acts like a muscle. But if I put my arm as a muscle, I put it in the cast for a year, it wouldn't grow stronger. It wouldn't even stay the same, right? It would atrophy. Yeah. Same thing. That's what digital dementia is the high reliance on technology to remember for you, so we can't remember for ourselves. Now, as we go into AI, or even in the phase before that, GPS, right? If there's a third-party technology telling you when and where to turn, to be able to get to this destination, then we don't have to develop our own visual spatial intelligence, right, anymore. And so I relate everything back to what people could see, like the human body. If somebody's apartment or office is on the 5th floor, an elevator or a lift, depending on where you are, is a form of technology, and it's very convenient. But then somebody taking that doesn't walk the stairs, so they're not getting the physical fitness, right? If somebody has to go to the bank and it's 8 blocks away and they take a car or an Uber, that's very convenient. That's technology, but then we didn't get our steps in. So I feel like the discernment comes from, yes, use AI, but still think, right? Use it to remember, but also remember yourself, right? Use it to create, but still be creative.
I can see literally today how original thought is differentiating and giving people so much of an edge than just understanding how to use the tool. For sure, that's table stakes, but it's that original thought where we've been consuming so much media so fast over the last 10 years anyway, beyond that. Even the headline, like, did you cognitively think through what it's saying? And are you thinking, like, have you read the article and thought about your own beliefs? Or are you just reading the headline and then telling everybody at lunch or debating it without understanding?
The challenge with the algorithm, too, is whatever you engage with, you see more of. And if we're talking about like things like social media. And so then it's only going to give you that same point of view.
You're just feeding that,
right?
Yep.
Totally. And so you're in that echo chamber. So you never develop your cognitive flexibility, which is so important in business, right? Cognitive flexibility, like we do this with our training, this mental parkour, be able to be, because like just if somebody's more physically flexible and they're more physically agile, same thing mentally. It's so important now to be able to, like, I think one form of intelligence, and I define intelligence very practically. It's not IQ. It's not like you take a test when you're 8 and that's your potential when you're 88. That's been debunked, right? For human intelligence, I believe it's multiple intelligences that are not fixed like your shoe size that could be enhanced. Because I could show anybody how to enhance any of these areas. Now, why is it important? Well, I think part of how I define intelligence is how you use your brain and direct your mind to create the life you want. That for me is someone who's intelligent. Like somebody can have a lot of facts and book smart, but if their life doesn't reflect any kind of results, how intelligent are they really? Right?
It's almost just back to head, heart, hand. You're skipping the heart if you're just productive and lots of output and lots of success, right? Without feeling the success.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And so it has to be aligned and it has to be optimized, right? Because I do believe the life we live are the lessons we teach. And ultimately we could say we're going to do one of the challenges people saying they're going to write a book, and it's different per person. It's bio-individual. Just like some people are allergic to certain foods and that could be good for other people, right? But sometimes when people post that, they get the dopamine for posting it. But then they don't feel like they need to do anything because they already got the, oh my God, that's amazing, you're gonna write a book and everything else like that.
Recognition.
Right. And then they're flooded and they feel satisfied, so they never actually have to do that thing. Right. So this is, and a lot of times when I'm talking to myself, right? Because I go through this and we have a new book and there's all of this. But I would say when it comes to this integration, where mindset, motivation, and methods, they cross over, right? Where mindset and motivation cross over, that's inspiration. I make 3 I's. And, so mindset, motivation. So what's a good inspiring book or an inspiring speaker or inspiring movie do? It changes your mindset about what's possible, and it gives you some little motivation. But then you don't know what to do because you don't have the methods. Where mindset and methods cross over, there's another I, which is ideation. You believe it's possible, mindset, and you know what to do, methods.
You're spinning if you don't.
It's ideation. You're just in your mind. You don't have motivation to do anything.
Yeah.
And where motivation and methods cross over, you have implementation. You're motivated and you have methods. You know exactly what to do, and that's implementation. But you can only achieve as much as your mindset allows. Because going back to identity, we can't outperform our self-perception, our perception of ourself. Right? That's not that you're going to rise to the level of your dreams and goals. You're going to fall to the level of your identity.
System. Oh, your identity.
Yes, your system for sure. No, I think the things that we can control is you'll fall to the level of your systems and your self-image, and your state in terms of how you're feeling at any given time. And I feel like we have more autonomy in terms of how we feel. And I don't think, I'm not one of those people that says you should be happy all the time at all. But I feel like state regulation is so very important. for kids, for adults, for everything. But going back to this model here, so you have mindset, motivation, methods, and then you have inspiration, ideation, and implementation. But where all three M's and all three I's hit in the middle, and it's all of them, that's integration. That's my goal for if I'm working with a client or a student or a company, is integration. Another word is identity. It's just who you are.
So I'm going to do a couple of, you can call them rapid fire, but it's just because I'm trying to get, I have so many other questions, but they aren't like yes or no questions. So maybe they can be one sentence or two or three answers. Hope. Can we talk about hope for a moment? I mentioned to you, so 6 months ago, if someone would have said, hope is a strategy to me, I would have politely maybe rolled my eyes a little bit. I'm a spreadsheet girl, I like action, but I've changed my mind on that. And I feel that I've been wrong because I've seen a loved one go through a very hopeless situation. And the moments that I actually saw them have a little hope was when we would see some progress. And moments I was most concerned was when we didn't. So I started to see this, and I did some research and learned the power of hope just in terms of, and tell me if this is correct, our amygdala is activated and we're starting to see a path forward potentially. Our mind is, that could be worth the effort. It's not just a feeling, which then of course signals potential like perceived progress. Then we have some dopamine, motivation, action. But can you talk through a little bit more around this concept of hope? Because it turns out we can actually borrow it and lend it too with each other. Yeah,
very, very much so. I mean, if there are a number of parts of your nervous system that come aligned. If we're going to talk about the amygdala, that's a big one. That's a big lever, meaning that your amygdala is like a switching station for emotions. Interesting enough, your amygdala, which looks like an almond, is connected to another part of your brain that looks like a seahorse. Which is your hippocampus, which is memory. So it's interesting that emotions and memory are very closely tied. We tend to remember things that are emotional naturally. And if we don't feel something, we tend not to remember it, going back to the feelings. Because it's not logical, but we are biological. And what I think, what hope is, and I've said it before that hope is not a strategy, but I do feel that when we're talking about becoming more limitless, like just overcoming our perceived limits or something that we're bouncing back from, that having some kind of, so I do something called future episodic remembering. And this is a process that I have in our new book where it's like, what if you could imagine something that you desire and it feels so real as if you're remembering it? As if you're remembering it actually happened. So if everyone could remember what they had for breakfast this morning, it's that real, as if that goal is that real, as if it happened.
You're looking back on it.
And you're looking back as if it happened. And what does it do for somebody who feels hopeless? Like, I feel like part of what we're doing in this world is change agents, or whatever you label it, is giving people hope and help. Like giving them some kind of new possibility, and then giving them the help to be able to guide them to get there. With our time, with our talent, with our whatever wisdom we've had along the way also as well. So I would say also with the amygdala, it calms down, because when we're in survival mode and we're hopeless, it's like it holds you hostage from it holds you hostage from the rest of your body and your brain that could actually help you. So if you're in fight or flight, you're in that sympathetic mode, right? You're facing whatever because of past trauma or whatever it happens to be. Then it holds you hostage in that part of your brain where you don't have easy access to your executive functioning, to your prefrontal cortex, your ability to make decisions, your ability to vision something, imagine something greater, the ability to solve problems, your ability to make better decisions, right? Because we're coming from a survival mode. And it's tough because part of it is the inputs that we have that makes us feel more hopeless. Right, all the doom and gloom. If it bleeds, it leads. The doom scrolling everything, and because that's shaping our possibilities. I mean, the big initiative around this new book is what can you do first thing in the morning to set yourself up for success that only takes minutes. This is interesting, Amy. So when I was doing research for this book, this book took me a year to write, and I wrote it as a passage a day. It's a daily book. So a daily book, you read 1 page a day in 5 minutes. It sets you up, because in the morning, it's like you're getting on an airplane and you're heading to a certain destination. And here's the challenge. The turbulence that we experience from going here to there is distraction, right? It's you reacting to everything. Everything's a fire, all the emails and notifications and, everything that you need to do. You're on the defense, right? And it's hard to create a compelling life if we're just reacting, right? But here's the other thing. If you're going in this direction, because the first thing you do is set your course when you get on that plane. If you're just off 1% off over time, the length of that day or the length of that trip, you can end up in a completely different destination, a totally different city or even a different country, right? Because that's a 1% shift.
Trajectory shifts.
Yeah, very much so. And my reminder is, because people feel like they're a passenger on this plane going through the day, is I remind people, I literally take them by the hand and put them into the cockpit and remind them that they are the pilot, right? Because sometimes we're at this effect, and it's reminding them that you're sitting in the driver's seat, or in the pilot's seat, where you have agency, right? You're in control of what we're doing today. And I would say that some people don't have clarity where they want to go on that trip. The other part of it is, when you wake up physiologically, there is something called sleep inertia. Sleep inertia in science is the transition from a sleeping state to a waking state. And what's happening is certain parts of you are coming online. Your alertness, your attention. I mean, think about it. Your working memory is not full, right? Like full in terms of it's clear because you haven't had any of the input. And during that time, the handful of minutes, first thing when you wake up, there is something magical happens. Your mental inputs have a disproportionate effect on the rest of your day in that window, right?
In a good way.
Like
over-indexing.
Yes.
More powerful, per se.
And whether it's good or bad, depending on the mental input. Right? Because what happens...
More potent.
Right. A very, very powerful multiplier. So it's a disproportionate, and so your mental inputs are going to have a disproportionate output. And what's that output look like? Whatever you do the first few moments, when you wake up, transitioning as you're coming online, is it determines how you frame situations the rest of the day.
Interesting.
It has a large influence on what you're going to focus on the rest of the day.
Your
perspective, your focus, your point of view. It also has a disproportionate effect on your mood for the rest of the day. Like how many times
decisions and mood, like
all of that.
Okay.
And so it frames situations the rest of the day based on that. So you could see it as like, this is threatening, or this is an opportunity, or something that's good or bad. It also determines what you're going to, it has a high influence on what you're going to focus on the rest of the day. And it also could, it's mood, focus, and framing. And so what do most people do the first few minutes of the day?
Get the phone out.
Right. And
then they're on defense, whatever's coming at them,
and
right?
that window, the process that's happening during that, they call it attentional priming. So if the first thing you do is grab your phone in that state, then what are you feeding your mind and with the mental inputs that's going to frame the rest of your day and your focus and your mood? So
you're back to the thermometer versus the thermostat, right?
And so it's all of the, like nobody would wake up and invite 200 strangers into their bedroom and just talk about whatever they want to talk about.
Sabotaging yourself.
But that's like literally what we're doing by choice. Like we're actively doing this. Maybe we're not intentional about it. It's happening, but it's unconscious, but it's still happening nonetheless. Or if it's not wiring your brain for distraction, you wonder why you can't focus that day. Or depending on what you're seeing, it could also hijack your mood, depending on what you're seeing the first thing in that morning, right?
So one of and I have to preface this too, I said amygdala, I meant prefrontal cortex on the hope part, because that's where we're making planning decisions, right? But bringing back around. But to your point, so one of my questions, I think you just answered it, was, this is one of my final questions. If everything that, you've put out there, and I agree, we kind of learned what we need to teach, like we're on this journey and we're learning, if everything that you've ever published and said and shared were to kind of go away tomorrow, but you could choose one daily practice, would it be a morning?
There's no doubt on this. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
What is it?
I think the biggest challenge with people is not managing their focus. because that's gonna escalate.
And so is this a morning?
So I would say, if there was one thing out of everything that I've seen, and with whether it's the sports figures and the politicians or the chair people of C-suite executives, it would be those first few minutes a day. If you want to win the day, you got to win those first few minutes of the day. And I would say the rule here is mind before media. Nourish your mind those first few minutes, set your course for that day, as opposed to invite media, which is going to train you to be in a certain mood, right? It's going to create all this context switching and doom scrolling, whatever it is, but also it makes you reactive, right? You could also pick up your phone and get an email from somebody or a client or a voicemail or a social media message that hijacks your mood and focus throughout the day also. So I would say to protect your mind before media first thing in the morning. And some people could do it. They don't have to do it with my book. They could do it with gratitude, right? They could do it with focusing. I do this exercise all the time. It's one of the entries in the 300. So this is a daily book, 366 keys to train your brain, master your mind, and win every single day. And so it's using in 5 minutes, and everybody has 5 minutes to read a page, and it has the 4 I's. It has the idea, right? The ideation. It's written in an inspiring way. It has the science to back it, either the psychology or the neuroscience to back why this works. And then it has the implementation. And then at the end, I put an identity statement in terms of what you're committing to that day. So it's full. It's like some people get more out of one page than they will from a whole other book or a course, because it's just, everybody has 5 minutes in that attentional priming, in that sleep inertia span, and it could have a major effect. And then what is 1%? What is just one a day? You'll be unrecognizable at the end of a year.
I love it.
It's like it's getting your mind right. And so I would say, like, another one of the entries there is like this idea where you're lying in bed, and the first thing you do, besides, do not grab your phone. Sometimes subtracting, you multiply, right? It's all about, you have a to-do list, have a not to-do list. I don't even have the phone, it's in the bathroom, so I can't even, if I wanted to, do it. So you always want to create friction. You want to make it hard, as for habit design, hard to do the things that's bad for you, easy to do the things that are good for you, right? Really simple, environmental design. But I would say that instead of grabbing your phone, you can't just stop doing something. You have to start. Like, life is really easy. There's a quote in Limitless that says, life is letter C between B and D, where B is birth and D is death, life C is choice. So our lives are the sum total of all the choices we made up to this point. And these difficult times, they can define you. These difficult times can diminish you. These difficult times can distract you. Or these difficult times, they can develop you, right? We ultimately decide. I would be deciding what to use that first 5 minutes of the day, because it's going to set the tone for the rest of your day. It's going to set you on course in the pilot seat to where you want to go, as opposed to somebody hijacking that plane, taking you to wherever they want to go, or turbulence from distraction somewhere else with somebody else's agenda. And so I would say preserve that time, mind before media, all the way.
Which is brilliant. And as an advocate of you, because you've helped me change my mind and adapt it and evolve it over time, I love that it's a short, simple, most people don't.
I wrote this for my kids for when they're adults. And it's made out of like what I'm facing that day. So if I feel distracted, if I feel imposter syndrome, if I feel frustration, if I feel not motivated, whatever it is, there's a passage on that, 366 of them. So it has the main idea, which is really cool, it's something that they could do with the science that backs it, and a new identity statement. And it's just really to set your course. It's to nourish your mind. I mean, I see it like food, right? If you woke up in the first few minutes, you ate all this junk food, it would affect your mood, your vitality, your motivation throughout the rest of the day. But information is just food for your mind, right?
It makes total sense. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer.
You wouldn't start with hollow calories, or just then you've ruined it. Why would you try again for the rest of the day? Because you've already, what I mean? That's how your mind works. But okay, so just one final question here. What's one thing that you keep learning over and over, Jim? Is there anything that you
lessons?
That you find that this pattern that you've learned more than once?
Well, if I feel like if I learned it,
then you've integrated it.
Then I've changed behavior. But I will say some things you can only learn in a storm, right? That I mentioned, just like with my accident, because that's something it took me a while. I think less. Okay, So I think lessons repeat themselves until they're learned, right? I also think some storms are there not only can be learned in a storm, but to clear your path. I've certainly had things that happen in my life where storms happen and it cleared a path. So I could subtract, and when you subtract, sometimes you multiply, right? You remove, and then you could do that. I would also say, just to point out, some people create their own storms and they get upset when it rains, all right, and they get all wet. But that's going back to agency. I share something called OLD. So OLD is an acronym for what it's worth. I mean, it's kind of answering your question, it's kind of not, but I hope it's useful. OLD. So when you make a mistake, right, the O is you own that mistake. You own it. You don't blame somebody else. You don't make excuses for it. If you hurt somebody, you make it right, but you take responsibility. You own what happened. At least your part in it. The L in OLD, because you're putting in the past, this mistake, is you learn from it, right? Well, because mistakes are stepping stones, right? But there's no such thing as failure, just failure to learn something, right? It's all feedback, and feedback is, as we know, is the breakfast of champions. So you make the mistakes, so you learn, and then you could make better decisions in the future. But the D is going to answer your question. The D is, if you really learned it, don't repeat it. All right, because I feel that sometimes people say they learned something, but they didn't really learn it if their behavior hasn't changed in the future.
Consistent integration.
Yeah, and maybe because I prioritize learning, and ultimately, I'm lazy. I work really hard, like most people here that are watching. But I've developed all these, these thinking systems and these learning systems to be able to adapt. Because ultimately, I think that's human beings' superpowers, our ability to adapt. And I think our ability to learn, unlearn, relearn, be able to implement quickly is the ultimate advantage today in business and in life. And I really lean into the human aspect of this. I really feel like nowadays, like I love these conversations because we're talking about, heart, and the things that aren't easily, and I use AI for a lot of collaboration, a lot of my own personal guidance and coaching, not just content creation and systems, but I think a world that's more human, and you can just even make an acronym out of it, H, and these are key, for me, and I'm just doing this on the fly. For me, H would be heart. Going back to emotional intelligence, it's so very important nowadays, especially in the world of AI, where some people view it as something that's more cold. The U is understanding, right? And so understanding, and also like part of understanding is also self-reflection, right? Not reactive thinking, but reflective thinking, where we're going inside and we're seeing, looking at ourselves, having the curiosity to know ourselves, and also having the courage to be ourselves, right? That would be my focus on why not now? It'd be like, or not, and certainly on me, is having the curiosity to know yourself. And that's why people do whatever they do. They do therapy, they use AI as a guide, they use plant medicine, they meditate, they journal, whatever it is, they see a therapist. And then having the courage to be that person is a different game, in a world where people have their expectations and opinions. And then from there, the M would be meaning, because ultimately human beings determine what all this data means. And that would also anchor purpose in. Because I think passion is what lights you up. Like learning is a passion of mine. It wasn't always because I had this learning disability, but it lights me up. Teaching people how to learn lights them up. And I think that's what purpose is. Passion is what lights you up. Taking your passion and helping somebody, sharing your passion with somebody else, and it lights them up, then I feel like that's more my purpose. Like, so learning lights me up, teaching people how to learn lights them up, that's my purpose. So I feel like that's really, really, really critical also as well, in terms of personal meaning. And then we could expand the acronym also, beyond that and so on.
Thank you though for your life work. The ability for us to adapt right now. I think that pressure and also that necessity is huge, and it's these types of tactics, these types of ways of understanding, and then implementation that work, and the simple nature of Limitless helping you each day, quick, and early and often, early as in early in the morning is. I'm so excited for everyone to have access and get their hands on it. So thank you so much for being here, Jim.
No, I appreciate it. People could check it out at limitlessdaily.com. And I appreciate you. I'm thinking about, I'm just sorry, my mind's still, the A is adaption, which I feel like is very important. And then finally, the N, I would make nexus. Nexus is all about community and connection. Because it's not just our neurological networks, it's our social networks. But
And there we have the full human.
yeah.
Full human. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.